श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पाद शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम् मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवम् परमानन्दमाधवम् नमः श्रीशङ्करानन्द गुरुपादाम्बुजन्मने सविलासमहामोह ग्राहग्रासैककर्मणे. Okay, so in the last class we have done more of a introductory to the subject itself, and we have gone through different which we call as darshanas, otherwise called philosophies in general terminology. But we have seen that a darshana is an all-encompassing of all-encompassing nature, which includes the ritual, which includes the philosophy, and which includes the vision of that particular rishi, whoever has seen that, seen in the sense that comprehended the entirety of the same Veda that we talk about. So what the source document more or less remains the same. However, different rishis had different vision or comprehension of that particular aspect as to what it is telling. It can be different, and we follow, as we said, is what we follow is obviously what Shankaracharya has rediscovered, we can put it, or redefined as Advaita Vedanta. It's not that it was not there before Shankaracharya. Obviously, it was there. For example, his own guru, Parma Guru, also followed same Advaita Vedanta, really speaking. And we have gone through the six major philosophical exposures with that that are there with within the Indian society. And we have gone through that Nyaya philosophy, Sankhya philosophy, yoga, etc., etc. I will not go through that again, really speaking, not necessary. But the reason why we have got that exposure to all these different philosophical studies or philosophies available is because the book that we are going to take up, that is the Panchadashi, Swami Vidyaranya brings up these philosophies as Purva Pakshi. The concept of Purva Pakshi is always there in our books when you go through even Shankaracharya's or any book, for example, even Sureshwaracharya's Nashkarmi Siddhi, any of the texts that you take, there is a concept of Purva Pakshi that a particular person brings in, whoever is writing that particular book. Yeah, Purva Pakshi means that particular aspect wherein a question might come from a person belonging to a different, who is following a different philosophy, basically. Yeah. So you have Vidyaranya bringing in Nyaya philosopher, for example, asking a question based on Nyaya and how he is wrong and why Vidyaranya thinks that he is right. So that is the nature of our books in terms of the idea is this always a concept of people asking questions and answers being given. Means that whenever you are studying something, don't follow don't follow blindly what is being taught. You always have a right to question and clarify doubts. That is how the entire study is patterned or designed in the Indian philosophy per se. So you will find a Nyaya philosopher, for example, coming and asking questions, or a Sankhya or a Yoga, a Purva Mimamsa. Any of these people, they can come and ask questions based on their own understanding of this particular thing that is being revealed. Yeah? And what we follow, obviously, is Advaita Vedanta. So Swamiji answers them in terms of this. So to understand the question, we must have a brief background of what these philosophies, and that was what was attempted in the last class, to bring in that particular aspect, that this is what is Nyaya philosophy, this is what is Vaiseshika, this is what Sankhya, etc. Nyaya, Sankhya, Yoga, etc., they are purely a dualistic philosophies that we have. That means the created is as real as the creator, so to say. Vaiseshika is a very specific Advaita philosophy, but we will not go into that particular aspect because we don't find that in any of the questions that is coming. Maybe because Ramanujacharya, who actually brought out that philosophy in a bigger way, is after Shankaracharya. So you will not find that Advaita Vedantins are that much focusing on that. But from time to time, you will see that, because you will find that this particular book focuses more on Nyaya and sanctions, asking these questions. And if we actually go into chapter 3 of this particular text, you will actually see that all these philosophies have been touched upon by Swami Vidyaranya, so that we must, as a students, understand what is so focused in Advaita Vedanta and what are the nuances that differentiate this particular philosophy from others. In general terms, it may not be that important for us to really understand all this, but generally keep in mind that Buddhism, for example, Jainism, and mainly Buddhism, you will find that Vidyaranya touches on Buddhism quite a lot, because Buddhism was prevalent when Shankaracharya was there, and any Advaita Vedantin writing a book will touch base upon Buddhism and why it is not to be followed, kind of a thing. Yeah, this is how actually the text goes. So that's the reason why we said we have gone through that particular aspect to start. Anyway, we will now start the main text itself, which is called Panchadashi. Yeah, this text what we are taking up, and what we are going through is the first chapter of this Panchadashi, called Tattva Viveka. Now, the Panchadashi, the very name is what it means is actually 15. Pancha is 5, Dashi is 10, so Panchadashi becomes 15. 15 of what? Here we refer to these 15 because the whole of Panchadashi is treated as one book. We refer to that as 15 chapters, so to say. Yeah? But really speaking, the Panchadashi, each of these can be treated as a separate text by itself. A separate Prakarana Grantha is the term that is used. Yeah. So we have in our text, when we go through, we have these Upanishads are there. For example, even Bhagavad Gita is there. All of them are referred to as Shastra Grantha, means each of these Shastra Grantha is an all-encompassing book that gives you the way to reach that Brahman in terms, or you can say, realization, starting with the subject, ending with the realization. So if any subject, when we talk about these granthas, Shastra Grantha, subject will remain Brahman or the Lord, God, you can define that in those terms. That is the subject of any of them, really speaking. However, based on those Upanishads or Bhagavad Gita or Brahma Sutras, these three Shankaracharya has taken as the three pillars of measure against which any of the text that subsequently comes will have to measure up to. If there is any difference in terms of understanding, in terms of the subject that is being written in a book, if there is a conflict, one that is given in the Prakarana, these three of Prakarana Granthas, sorry, the three which I mentioned of Upanishad, Bhagavad Gita and Brahma Sutras, whatever is there and how it has been brought out by the masters like Shankaracharya will hold good. One which is in the Prakarana Grantha, if it is in contrast, in conflict with that, is not correct, is how it will be treated. So this kind of a discussion will always take place whenever there is a new concept being brought about, a new book being brought about. So you will find that in Panchadashi, this 15 that we are talking about, all 15 of them each of them can be treated as a text by itself, and we call them as Prakarana Grantha. And Prakarana Grantha can be one or more elements of the overall text that is there as Upanishad can be focused upon when it comes to any of these Prakarana Granthas. So you can have a Prakarana Grantha written specifically only on sadhana, for example, sadhana practice that is there associated with that. You can have a Prakarana Grantha written specifically on one particular topic within the Upanishad as well. However, there are some Prakarana Granthas which are all encompassing. You have all of them coming in terms of this particular covering end to end as well in some of these Prakarana Granthas. So these 15 chapters that we are talking about actually falls as 15 books, and that is the reason why we don't really require to follow a sequence as well when you are studying this Panchadashi. In Quest film, if you recollect, when Swami Gurudev went to Swami Tapovanji for study of the scriptures, one of the texts that is given is this Panchadashi. So it is that such an important text that we call this one, mainly because the entire text is available, and the way it has been written by Swami Vijayaranya makes it one of the texts being referred as a library book, kind of for people who are seriously interested in Advaita Vedanta. So this, they call it as the guru of all the Prakarana Granthas, so to say. Yeah, and the two, even a study of one or two or three of these chapters is considered good enough for someone to get the entire understanding of Advaita Vedanta, so to say. Yeah, so that is how important this is considered. And Jayaji was mentioning when she had taken up this particular text when she was in that course at Sandipani, Panchadashi was covered, but actually they covered only chapter 1 and chapter 6 because time availability, etc., is very limited, 2-3 years of time, and they had to cover quite a lot of text during that time. Panchadashi, all 15 definitely were not taken up, but 1 and 6 was taken at that particular time. So this 1 and 6 are considered important enough, so to say. Gives you the a very detailed knowledge of the Advaita Vedanta, what it means and what type of practice, what it means to practice, etc. You will see that when we go through this particular list. Yeah. So this is the self-knowledge, obviously, that we are talking about here. A brief history on Swami Vidyaranya himself. Um, there is a kingdom which is called Vijayaranji when he was there. Uh, the kingdom is called Vijayanagara Empire, which covered quite a sizable portion of southern India, south of Karnataka, Andhra, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, etc. And it was there for more than 450 years. And unfortunately, that kingdom went out of this one after that because of some occupation by the Muslim rulers. But the concept of Hinduism is so strong in these areas. You won't find, and you find huge temples, etc., in the South India, mainly because of this particular kingdom, which was ruled for more than 450 years in the time when North India was occupied by the Muslim kingdoms, basically. So you can understand how important that kingdom is. And Swami Vidyaranya is supposed to be the person who actually encouraged a couple of generals, Harihara and Bukkaraya, to establish this kingdom. Not only that, he continued to be the prime minister of that particular kingdom for a considerable period of time, more than 50 years, 40 years, that he continued to be the prime minister. More than one king he has served as a prime minister, established this kingdom based on the Hindu dharma as such. So very, very important personality from the perspective of sustaining Hinduism in South India, and not only sustaining, but flourished, we can say. A person from Andhra, Karnataka can easily uh, attach oneself to, or identify oneself with this Vijayanagar kingdom. Very, very known as such. Unfortunately, it's in ruins now, the capital city of Hampi. But anyway, that is the current situation. So this, and also Swami Vidyaranya happens to be from a family of very learned people. There were four of these brothers. All four are very highly advanced Advaitic scholars, so to say. His own younger brother, called Bharati Tirtha, obviously that is his sannyasi name. This Bharati Tirtha went on to become Shankaracharya of Sringeri Mutt, that is established by Shankaracharya, even before Swami Vidyaranya. In fact, after Bharati Tirtha, he died before Vidyaranya, unfortunately, although being younger. Then Vidyaranya took over the Shankaracharya's position of Sringeri Mutt towards his last days. For more than 6-7 years, he remained the Shankaracharya of Sringeri Mutt, and he was the one. Before that, in his Grihastha he was known as Madhava Matya or Madhav Bhatta. One of the names, really speaking, it doesn't matter. But he is the one, actually, he wrote quite a number of books even before becoming Shankaracharya. So you can understand his younger brother became Shankaracharya, means he himself is a very prolific writer and scholar of Vedanta. And their guru is also Swami Shankarananda, again a very prolific Vedantic guru. Very, very fortunate that we had such people all together at one time who actually consolidated the teachings. And Panchadashi is one of the texts that is treated as that he has brought about all the learnings into one particular text, so to say. And there is one more book after this, again, that is more linked to that particular sadhana krama, which is there, but we will not go into that. Yeah. So Panchadashi and Jivan Mukta Viveka is something which he has written towards the end, like a kind of a essence of the entire his own learnings over a lifetime that he has put into, and the clarity that he brings in is really, really amazing. Obviously, this is a very advanced text, even within the Prakana Granthas. So we need to focus on when it comes to this. Each and every word has got a very specific meaning. We will try to do our best in terms of what I have learned from Swami Advayananda. He is now actually in charge of CIF Kerala, and he is taking this particular text, Panchadashi, for more than 4 years now, or 5 years. And fortunately, I started very early in the journey. So we are currently on chapter 7, after completing 6 chapters of this particular text. Although very, very difficult to retain the entire teaching. But Advayananji is from whom I learned. Yeah? Just to give you a background for this particular. Now, there is another, this one talked about, unfortunately, what happens is none of our teachers, they take credit for any of the work they have written. They really don't care. Similarly, Vijayaranji, I don't think he has written anything except the first verse that we will go through gives an indication. But the one of the commentaries written on Panchadashi, fortunately, is by a student of Bharati Tirtha. So immediately after maybe his demise, and this Panchadashi obviously was a text already popular, and somebody has written a commentary, and in that commentary he suggests that when it came to chapter 7, he immediately changes the author from Vidyaranya to Bharati Tirtha. So there is one more concept telling that maybe first 6 chapters were written by Vijayaranyaji, and 7 to 15 are then compiled by his younger brother, who was already a Shankaracharya. 7 to 15 is one of the thinkings that is there. It really doesn't matter, because ultimately everything is attributed to Shankaracharya, because that is how the entire teaching is coming. Guru Shishya Parampara is coming. Whatever we are learning, obviously it is something what Shankaracharya has given. So there is nothing that a particular person can take credit for, so to say. Like Gurudev never says that it is his, this one. Yeah. Similarly, it is Shankaracharya's teaching ultimately. So it doesn't matter. And nobody, unfortunately, has written that I am the one who is writing this, in those days. So Sringeri Mutt, as I mentioned, Shankaracharya, he remained Shankaracharya for 7 or 8 years towards end of it. And the dating again is very, very not very clear, because many things are there out there if you want to really investigate a little bit. But essentially, this particular thing is supposed to be between somewhere in 1300s. So 1315 to 1400s, somewhere around this particular text is supposed to have come out. The Panchadashi as a text, when you see, you will find that chapter, it is split into three different groups which are there. The first group, 1 to 5, 5 chapters, the name of that ends with Viveka. Viveka is discrimination. We all know that. Yeah? So this Viveka, it ends with Viveka, and Viveka is taken as the Sat aspect, the existence aspect of Satchit Ananda when we talk about the nature of the Brahman. And since these are all associated with the Brahman as the topic, main topic of this particular text obviously is Brahman. And the first 5 will view the Brahman through the prism of Sat. And hence they are named as Tattva Viveka, Mahabhuta Viveka, Panchakosha Viveka, Mahavakya Viveka, Dvaita Viveka, like that. There, the order is there, but all the 5 are ending with Viveka. So it is treated that as if these are all looking at Brahman through the prism of Chit or, Sat or existence. The next 5 chapters or books are ending with a word called Deepa. So you have Chitradeepa, Triptideepa, Kutastadeepa, Dhyanadeepa, Natakadeepa. So the names indicate that these are all viewing Brahman from the viewpoint of Chit, because Deepa means the you see that the lamp which is there, and Deepa always refers to lamp or flame or fire, always refer to the Chit or the consciousness aspect which is there. So these five are indicating that Brahman is being viewed from the prism of the Chitta when it comes to these five. And last five of the 15, they end with Ananda. So you have Yogananda, Atmananda, Advaitananda, Vidyananda, Vishayananda. Like that, these five, last five are ending with Ananda. Obviously, what it means is that Brahman is being presented there from the prism of the Ananda or the bliss aspect which is there. So you can see that this particular Panchadashi itself covers extensively. So you can imagine that from Sat aspect, 5 different chapters are written by Vijayaranji. And we have the Chit being equally represented by 5 chapters, and you have 5 chapters engaging us with the Ananda aspect, which is Ananda Prakarana. So you have Viveka Prakarana. So this Panchakam, the first five chapters are referred to as Viveka Prakarana. And what we are looking at is Tattva Viveka. Very first chapter is Tattva Viveka. Tattva, as you know, is inquiry. Inquiry into what? And Viveka obviously is discrimination that we talk about. So when we talk about Tattva, very essence of the very self, that is what we are really looking at in the very first chapter, and it is named as Tattva Viveka Prakarana. So what it does, what it covers is the very essence of the self, and how that self is linked to your own limited self that you call as Jivatma, and how it is important for you to overcome that limitations that you feel, and how to break that shackles of that bondage, etc., and gain the freedom, so to say. That is what is the entire text is about. Right? So very first verse that actually I already read the verse in my prayer. And the reason why I did that is Swami Advayananda treats this particular first verse, which is referred to as part of the Mangala Charanam. Mangala is auspicious. Acharanam is the following, you can say. Following of Mangala, auspicious following. So it actually gives you the Anubandha Chatushtayam, because any book that is written, any text that is written, the very first verse is supposed to give you this Anubandha Chatushtayam. I'm sure you have gone through this one, but we will go through that and see how this particular verse covers that, those aspects of Anubandha Chatushtayam. We call that as Mangala Charanam, as I mentioned. So you have first 2 verses actually covering these aspects of Anubandha Chatushtayam, and also prayers. Any book that anybody writes comes out with the prayers associated. Prayer to whom? Prayer to our own Guru, and also prayer to the Lord, who made it possible for the person to reach a stage where he is able to book that in, put that knowledge in the form of a book. And you have seen that Shanti, Shanti, Shanti is to overcome the 3 obstacles, so to say. Yeah. I will not go into that, but I will read the first verse. If you can also repeat this particular verse, and also please try and memorize this verse, because we will be using this as a chanting in the opening prayer as such. Yeah. Namah Shri Shankarananda. I will give a gap so that you can practice. Okay. Namah Shri Shankarananda Guru Padambu Janmane Savila Samaha Moha Grahagrasaika Karmani. I'll repeat. Namah Shri Shankarananda Guru Padambu Janmane Savila Samaha Moha Grahagrasaika Karmani. So here the text starts with the very word called Namaha. Namaha, we all know, is prostrations, worship, yeah, salutations. You can translate that word very easy. That is one great thing about this text. Yeah, the Swamiji uses very, very simple terms, which we must have come across many times to convey a very, very deep meaning. That is the greatness of this particular text, so to say. Yeah. So Namaha, prostrate or worship, we already know what we are looking at. And Sri Shankara Ananda. So he is conveying that his guru is called Shankara. We already saw that Swami Shankarananda was the guru of Swami Vidyaranya. And this Swami Shankarananda himself was a very prolific writer. He wrote, they say, 35 different bhashyams on various Upanishads that are available at that particular time. And obviously Bhagavad Gita, he covered that as well. And his major contribution is his compilation of the work called Atma Purana. Now this Atma Purana, normally Puranas are the works that focus on Saguna Ishvara. Like if you see Bhagavatam is a Purana, Bhagavad Purana, very, very popular. And you find many of the Vishnu avatars being described there, including Krishna avatara when he was young as a boy, etc. Very popular. But all of that is related to the name and form of specific deities. And that is what Purana is normally about. But this Atma Purana, which he has written, is having a subject of Nirguna Brahman, Nirguna Ishvara. Ishvara only he talks about, but Nirguna Ishvara is covered, but still it is considered a Purana. So you can imagine that that particular Shankarananda, such a wonderful person who became guru for Swami Vidyaranya. So here he is Namaha, prostrating, worshipping Sri Shankarananda. Shankarananda, Shankara obviously refers to even Shiva. So he is, by covering that, he is covering Ishvara and Guru and putting a Namaha associated with both of them. And you have this person, this one then goes on to say, Guru Padambu Janmane. See, Ambuja means actually lotus. Lotus flower is referred to as Ambuja. So Ambu is water. So Ja is born. Born out of water is, many things are born out of water, but whenever it is used in Shastras, it refers to a lotus flower. And lotus flower has got a very significant meaning in our text in general. You see, with the representation of Lakshmi Devi, you will find that she is sitting on a lotus flower. Brahmaji, when he was manifested by Vishnu, out of navel a lotus flower comes, and then he sits on top. So lotus flower has got a symbolic representation in many of the texts that we see. Yeah? So this when we talk about Guru Padambuja, Guru Pada, obviously the feet of the Guru, and he is being the Guru's feet are being referred to as Ambuja, a lotus flower. Obviously, lotus flower represents many things, including the softness of that, the texture of that particular this one, And the characteristic of this particular lotus flower and leaf is that although it stays in the water can never touch it. Yeah, in the sense that it doesn't become wet, and the coating on that particular leaf is like that. So all these are taken into account why lotus flower is taken as a representation in our shastras for many things. So the Guru Padambu Janmane, so the lotus feet of Guru. This particular term, I'm sure that we have heard many of our Swamijis talking when we talk about lotus feet as such. Yeah. And Savilasa Mahamoha Graha Grasaika Karman. This is what the second line is telling. Full of pregnant meaning. Each of these word is such a huge text can be written only on this one. The words that is used for this one, each of these words, very, very amazing, really speaking. Savilasa is actually what we call that is the manifestation of this world or the creation itself. And or you can call that as samsara. Yeah, samsara with the pain and the bondage associated with that. Uh, when you assert something that's how it has come about, that particular term is called savilasa. Savila Samaha Moha. We are breaking it that way while chanting. That is more for chanting purpose. But when we break up for the meaning, Savila Samaha, it won't come like that. It is Savila Sa is one word. Maha Moha, I'm sure you can understand Maha Moha very easily. The great delusion. Moha, delusion. Maha Moha, greatest delusion. What is that greatest delusion that we talk about in Advaita Vedanta? Is nothing but you can call that as Maya or Mula Avidya, many of these terms that we are aware of. So this Mahamoha is being referred to as the Mula Avidya or ignorance, you can call that, and that is what is referred to as Mahamoha. Now, next is called Graha. Graha is referred to as crocodile. Crocodile is taken as Graha in our this ones. Yeah, and grasa is it swallows, eats up anything that comes in front of it. The characteristic of this crocodile is it stays at one place. It doesn't go in search of food. Yeah. So you have the food coming to the water ponds. I'm sure people have seen National Geography. Will come across this particular aspect that the entire water hole is infested with these crocodiles, and whenever other things come, so the food comes to it, and once it grabs and it takes it in. So you cannot escape that particular this one that easily. That is how. So the grasa is eats up, swallows up. Aika karmani. See how wonderfully the words are being used by Vijayaranji. He says, Graha Grasaika Karmani. So what is that work of the Guru? As per him, the only work of Guru is to swallow up this Mahamoha, which is being compared to the crocodile. So the only work of the Guru, he says, is to destroy and eat up, so to say, that Mahamoha, which the students uh, are going through, yeah, infected with that particular this one Maha ignorance. The only work of Guru is to eat up this Mahamoha. How wonderfully he has put that particular this one, you see. Yeah. And as I mentioned, traditionally, the first verse is referred to as the Anubandha Chatushtayam is supposed to be brought up. We have gone through many times, but quickly, Anubandha Chatushtayam includes a fourfold introduction to any text. Yeah, that is what Anubandha Chatushtayam, what we mean. The first one is referred to as Adhikari, or the qualified student who should be studying this particular text, is what is referred to as the Adhikari. Adhikari, qualified student. Second one is called Vishaya. What is the subject of this particular text that is being written? Very important. And this is not something only our Shastras do. Even the current textbooks, they do that. Yeah, when you see a chemistry textbook, for example, in a science textbook which is there, it defines that this particular textbook is for the 7th grade students, means a adhikari of this particular book that is there in front of you should have passed a minimum of 6th grade for him to gain any usage out of the text that is being read. Thus can read, but most person who will get the most usefulness out of reading this will be a person who has already passed the 6th grade. That is what it actually means. And obviously, when it talks about chemistry text, subject is there. So Vishaya is the subject, Adhikari is the qualified student. This covers that. And the third one is the Prayojana. By reading this text, what should I be getting? What is the gain for that, or the benefit that is there by reading this text of that Adhikari student? What will he gain? And fourth one is not that much critical for a Advaita text per se. I will come to that why, because it is called Sambandha, or the relation between the text and the subject matter. Yeah, subject matter is called Bodhya Bodhaka Sambandha in Sanskrit, just for people who are interested in that. Bodhya Bodhaka Sambandha means what is the relationship between the text and the subject matter. In case of Advaita Vedanta, Brahman is always the subject matter, and by gaining the knowledge of the Brahman, you already reach the goal. You don't need to get anything further or read anything further. So that's why I said in Shastra texts or Vedantic texts, we really don't place too much importance because they are the same. But in a from the reason why it is there as a part of the introduction to any text is in a social text, for example, if you are learning a cooking, this is example always acharyas used to give. If there is a text associated with cooking, you really don't gain much unless you prepare that dish and eat it. Yeah, you may read a book on on a jalebi, how it looks, how soft it looks, how sweet it tastes, but unless you read how to make that and make your own in terms of experience of eating it, it really doesn't help you, so to say. Yeah? So this is what Bodhya, Bodhaka, Sambandha, but we will ignore that. So here we have Adhikari, Vishaya and Prayojana. So it is the qualified student who is what is the subject matter and what is the Prayojana, what I gain by doing that. Obviously, the first two verses, as I mentioned, will cover this and hence are called Mangala Charana. We have read the first verse now, and worship of Guru's feet indicates that Adhikari is such a person who has prostrated at the feet of the Guru. What do we mean by prostration? Just because a Guru comes for a lecture and we all fall at his feet, and not really the physical aspect that we are talking about, is that particular aspect of that prostration wherein you drop your ego. See, this particular thing of prostration that we do for our Guru is referred to as Danda Praman. In Sanskrit, it's called Danda Praman. Danda Praman means what? How a stick falls, like that you fall in front of Guru's feet. Stick falling, not literally falling, but you are dropping the ego. That I don't have any ego associated with myself anymore. I don't have an individual existence anymore. I am at your feet. I am, you please take care of me when it comes to the knowledge. So that is how we are treating Guru from that perspective. Once you have that, the physical body, name and form really doesn't matter, neither of the Guru nor of the Sishya, really speaking. So a person who has dropped his ego is the one who becomes the adhikari for this particular text, because the very, very first verse starts with the word Namaha. So it is very, very important in terms of understanding the attitude of the student who is adhikari, or the guy who is responsible, a person who is qualified for reading this text, and that is indicated by the word Namaha. That is what Advainandji mentions. Yeah. So ego completely surrendered and dropped. Such a person is the adhikari for reading this. Second is called Vishaya. Obviously, when it talks about Shankarananda, I mentioned already, Shankara also can be treated as Shiva. Shiva is full of auspiciousness, and the Ananda aspect which is there. Now, when we talk about Ishvara, we say that Ishvara is of the nature of Sat Chit Anand. The Sat and Chit, the existence and consciousness from a perspective of a human being are very easy to understand and also comprehend, because I can feel that, yeah, the existence, nobody need to tell me I exist. I always existed from my birth, and I am existing now. That is the reason why I'm able to talk, I'm able to hear, I'm there in front of you, etc., etc. So existence is of no issue. Although the definition of existence may be different when it comes to Sat aspect of the Ishvara. Chit similarly is easy, because nobody need to tell you you are alive. Yeah? Consciousness is being alive. Feeling that conscious entity when I wake up is very, very natural for all of us. You don't require to study any grantha for that. But when it talks about Ananda, it becomes a slightly difficult aspect for us to understand, because I am not always Ananda. There are many instances when I am not Ananda, I am angry, I am this, I am that. There are so many emotions that are there. Forget about emotions, even aspect of Ananda, it comes and goes. So there is a joy, but equally there is a sorrow that is follows. So how is that I am of nature of Ananda is very difficult for people to grasp. So here, in fact, that is one of the reasons why all Swamijis take the name of Ananda. Means to say that they are the people who are on the path to understand this concept of Ananda. So you will find that most of our this ones, they take the name of ending with Ananda. So when we talk about this Ananda, it actually is referring to the Jiva who has to understand the nature of that Ananda from that perspective. So here, the Vishaya, when it talks about Shankarananda, it is actually telling that that aspect of Shiva, who is the Ishvara Tattvam, or the auspicious aspect which is there of Shiva, is same as Ananda aspect which is there in Jiva. So Jiva Ishvara Aikyam is being indicated by this word which is called Shankarananda. This is how the explanation is being given there. So when we talk about this Shankarananda, so the Mahavakya, which says Tattvamasi, is indicated by the term called Shankarananda. This is how the first very verse is being taken into account. Prayojana, obviously one who is understands, we have seen that the Guru actually eats away this ignorance, is how it is being put across. Yeah, he eats this ignorance completely. So that is the benefit. When he eats the ignorance, what happens? Ignorance is gone. Obviously, I understand my full nature, true nature, and obviously the realization is the term normally used in English. So we are looking at the prayojana of reading this is nothing but the realization. So this is how the and Sambandha, you can always say that Brahman remains the knowledge, knowledge remains the subject matter of any text. And by recognizing this knowledge, one will gain the knowledge. You don't really require to take any action subsequent to that to gain the full benefit of the text. That is the sambandha. So there are certain critical words, as I mentioned. Yeah, one is called ambuja. Ambuja, lotus. Let us dwell a bit more into the. Already I mentioned about the lotus feet, etc., and what it represents in our shastras. But really speaking, ambuja, the idea is that when you see the lotus flower in the night, when it comes, when the darkness comes, this particular lotus flower closes. And when the early morning sun comes in, the lotus flower blooms. So it is compared to the knowledge when it comes to a seeker's mind. His mind kind of opens out like the lotus flower. That is the indication. It remains closed as long as the ignorance is there or darkness is there, tamas is there. The moment you have a light coming in, the chit aspect, the deepa aspect comes in, automatically the lotus flower blooms like an intellect of a seeker blooms when the knowledge is being provided by the Guru. That is how one of the symbolisms of this lotus flower is taken. Second is what they very beautifully Advainandaji explained this. He said that a lotus flower is there in the lake for n number of days and months and a long time it is there. But there are many things that are there under this lotus leaf. Fish will be there, frogs will be there, many insects will be there, etc., etc. But the you will not find that they are gaining anything substantial by being very close to the lotus flower, lotus leaf. They are under. There maybe there is a survival that it provides to that extent. Yeah, but the main the main benefit is from the lotus flower.
Where is the bosses? Who is it?
Sorry. Okay. So the main benefit comes to such a person who, like a bee, comes from somewhere else, but with the only idea of sucking the honey from deep inside the lotus flower. So a seeker who comes to Guru is referred to as similar to a bee. He actually sucks the knowledge out of knowledge deep inside, residing in Guru's mind. That is how this lotus flower and the bee relationship is referred to. Yeah? So the lotus flower has got lot of meanings associated by the very end. I already mentioned that being in the water, a water can never touch it because of the coating, the oily coating that is there. A water drop will remain a drop on top of the leaf. It is not attached. Similarly, a guru is a person who will develop qualities in you wherein you can stay anywhere. You need not go to Himalayas. You need not go anywhere. Wherever you are there, you can remain asangaha, unattached with all the associated stuff which is there in and around you. That is how you need to develop the qualities associated with this. That is how the word lotus is taken. Yeah? And graha, crocodile, I have already told you, is referred to as mahamoha. So this mahamoha, or the ignorance, the original ignorance, the mula vidya, that is called maya, you can also refer to that. A crocodile is always taken like that because the crocodile's grip is so strong. Once the leg of a animal is caught in the caught by the crocodile, it gives two things, they say. Yeah, one is the pain associated with that, no doubt about that, and you cannot get rid of it so easily. The bondage associated with the grip and the pain obviously is there. So this mahamoha is linked to this grip of the crocodile, which gives you bondage, and also it gives you the sorrow of samsara. these two become part of the overall samsara experience of samsara for any jiva. So crocodile is again, you find in same Bhagavatam, there is a story of Gajendra Moksham. If you see, a crocodile will be there and the elephant comes in and it catches and Vishnu comes and saves it, etc., etc. Again, it is symbolic of the Mahamoha. When it comes to a crocodile is always taken as that. And you have grasa, I already mentioned, the ignorance is kind of eaten away by the guru, and guru's only job as per this particular verse is to understand and take out that particular ignorance out of the student's mind. So here our guru will remain as Swami Vidyaranyaji, and we will go through the text with his blessings. Yeah. And Shri is another term which is there in that, and Shri is is a combination of Shiva and goddess. Yeah, it is taken up Shi and Hrim, again represents the intense longing, like Lakshmi's longing for Vishnu is treated as the ultimate. Yeah, whenever Vishnu comes to take an avatara, Lakshmi Devi can never stay back. And even Sita, once he comes, Rama explains to her that don't come with me into 14 years of exile into the forest because there are so many this ones, but Sita can never remain. So the longing associated is called as mumukshutvam, and that is represented by this word Shri. So Shri Shankarananda is how it is defined as in this particular text. Yeah. We are just 2 minutes away from the closure. So we will take up the second verse and complete this Mangala Charanam in the next class. If anybody has got any questions, we can take it for 1 or 2 minutes and then close the class. Anybody there?
Yeah, Shankarji, I was just going to ask you, when you talked about the jiva has to understand the auspiciousness.
Correct.
Can you just repeat that thing again?
Shiva is the all auspiciousness that we talk about. When we talk about auspiciousness, what we are referring to is the purity associated with that thought. So when a seeker is going after auspiciousness of Shiva, it is the purity associated with that one has to develop in the mind and body. Body will come as a habit to start with, but mostly the mental cleanliness that comes with only a with the fourfold sadhana of Viveka Vairagya, Samadhamadi Shat Sampatti, and the Mumukshutvam, which are referred to as that. So when we talk about Shiva as the auspiciousness and Shiva and the Ananda aspect of Jiva, what we are referring to is this particular sadhana that we require to do to achieve that Jiva Brahma or Jiva Ishvara Aikya.
Can we also talk about like karma yoga for purity? Would that be appropriate or no?
Karma yoga is another term that is given for the fourfold sadhana that Shankaracharya talks about. It is not different from that. Yeah, Karma yoga is a broader term wherein the specific practices that you need to do are these four. They are not really separate from each other. Okay, so we will close the call. We will chant the Purnamada. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Okay, I am taking this class for the first time to